You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
So I'm going to go ahead and set up what we're going to be talking about in the next segment, and then we'll actually talk about it in the next segment. And what we wanted to talk about is the first few days of the Biden administration. We have been more happy with the first few days of the Biden administration than we've been for the first days of like any administration in our lifetimes. And now, of course, for me, that's not too hard. I haven't really witnessed the start of too many administrations, but I mean, David has been around for like 20 or 30 presidents. So, that's so that's pretty impressive for him to be so happy with the Biden admin.
I've been, and if you follow the show at all or listen to the show on a regular basis, I've been, my entire life, I have been absolutely degrading and down on every administration that I can remember. From the time that I can remember administrations, and the earliest that I have a recollection is under Jimmy Carter, and every one of them, including him. And I know everybody loves Jimmy Carter. It's easy because he does a lot of good work through Habitat for Humanity. Yeah, but as far as administration goes, terrible.
Yeah.
The most beloved on the right, Ronald Reagan, even worse.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton following him.
Just as bad.
Horrendous with NAFTA. It just goes on and on. So, we had somebody reach out to us this past week complaining because Trump was out of office and we were still, covering him. And it's like, well, we cover everybody. Yeah.
But when somebody does good, we want to say it, and Biden has been doing pretty good, pretty darn good. If you want to talk to us about it after we get through with our spiel, you can give us a call 1-866-494-9866, and we'll try to address some of those concerns there. So we're going to be talking about the first few days of the Biden administration on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison. Let's go!
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We are talking about the first few days of the Biden administration, and I said that, it's been really good. It's not all been good, and so we want to talk about those things too. And so we're going to front load the bad stuff, okay? Bad thing number one, his administration is apparently going to recognize Juan Guaido as the leader of Venezuela. That's
so much for democracy.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's absurd. I mean, whatever you think about Maduro, he's obviously got, there's, bad things there. But you can't just decide that, I'm going to choose, I am going to choose the leader of some random country like that. You can't do that. That's not. And so, I'm really hoping that we don't see this administration take a turn towards regime change and enormous sanctions.
They've always done that.
Yeah.
That ain't going to change.
Hopefully, we'll have enough pushback in Congress that we're not able to. That he's not going to. Well,
you have.
Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I know. Well,
God Almighty,
look.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, when does it ever happen? I mean, U.S. imperialism is so important in Congress. It's just
bipartisan foreign policy.
Bipartisan.
I mean, that's when foreign policy is concerned, we've got one party, and that's not really.
And I think it's important to point out for all those on the right that think, all of these undocumented immigrants that are coming from the South are just coming for no reason at all.
It's because of our foreign policy.
It is because of our foreign policy, and it's because we constantly do our best to overturn democratically elected leaders in Central, South America, and not so much in Mexico, but they use the flex of we're going to do this or we're going to do that. We're going to withhold funds.
Yeah, we're going to sanction. We're going to
sanction
you. We're going to keep necessary medications from being imported into your country. I mean, like who would have thought when you destroy a country that they're going to have refugees that want to come to your country?
Go figure.
I mean, go figure. Okay. The next thing, and this is something that, again, here we've got one party when it comes to the foreign policy apparatus. He appointed Mobile, Alabama man Lloyd Austin to Secretary of Defense, to the acclamation of the Alabama Democratic Party and former Huntsville City Council President Devin Keith on Twitter, because he's the first black man in that post. And look, like, that's great. I'm happy that there's a black man in the post. We need more representation. Diversity for its own sake is good, okay? It's a good thing. But it's not the only thing. And it is far more important that Lloyd Austin was still, as of yesterday, listed as a board of director for Raytheon. It's more important that we had to get a waiver for the second time in a row because he's so quickly out of the military. Our founding fathers set up a system so that we had civilian control of the military. And now, after Trump's Secretary of Defense and now Biden's Secretary of Defense, we have had to twice get a waiver to put somebody so quick that has so soon retired out of the military in charge of the military. I mean, we need to have civilian control of the military, and we need to have it is not good to have somebody who is so embedded in Raytheon, in the military industrial complex, heading up the military. I mean, there's an obvious conflict of interest there that you're going to have with somebody who will directly profit from the expansion of wars and imperialist excursions across the globe, heading up our military. I mean, it's just not good. It's not good at all. It was bad when Trump did it. It was bad when Bush did it. It's bad when Biden does it. Okay? Okay.
So you're talking bad about Biden now.
Talking bad about Biden.
Terrible. We're going to lose all of our Democrat listeners.
No, nothing if not fair.
Lord.
And we got somebody calling in. We're gonna try to get through this list of stuff. So we'll probably bring you in on the last segment if we've got time. So here's something that's a bit more controversial among union folks, and maybe actually David and I have divergent opinions on this, and this will be the last thing that's kind of a bad, kind of a not great thing. But this was controversial among union folks, and maybe David and I will have divergent opinions on this. But
it wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't be the first time. Biden canceled the Keystone pipeline, which did in fact have union workers doing the construction. Some of the unions involved, or all of the unions involved, I think, criticized the decision, including the Plumbers and Steamfitters Union, the Laborers International Union, and the North American Building Trades Union. There were approximately 600 union jobs already created, with a prospect for more. Pipeline enthusiasts, they're going to cite like an 11,000. They're going to say that 11,000 jobs will have been created, but a lot of groups really challenge that number. And I think here in Huntsville,
it's the same kind of horse crap that they do whenever they talk about all of these ancillary companies.
Exactly. Well, I think here in Huntsville, we've got the experience of Remington that we can draw on. Yeah. We recognize that when these big corporations want to get work, they're going to inflate the benefits. And so I'm skeptical of the 11,000 jobs number, but look, let's say it would have been 11,000 jobs. Creating 11,000 jobs is a good thing, but I think we do have to get serious about fighting climate change, and we've got to get serious about respecting recognized native land. This was going to be built on Native American treaty land. This was their land, and it doesn't matter if you can create 1 billion jobs. If you propose to do it on another sovereign country's territory and they say no, you can't just up and do it. You got to respect other sovereign countries, which is what these Native American tribes are. They are legally respected according to our Constitution and the treaties that we've made with their tribes. They are sovereign nations. And so, on the climate change aspect, again, we know that the Biden administration is going to make a lot of moves that is going to create way more than 11,000 jobs, even for these unions. And the unions know that. They're not stupid. That's why they endorsed Biden. They endorsed Biden after they knew that after he announced he was going to cancel the Keystone pipeline. They didn't They didn't know what they were getting into. They didn't not know what they were getting into, okay? So my preference would have been that he announced work near the side of the pipeline that would have employed the same workers immediately so that we could just skip this whole disingenuous show with Republicans pretending that they care about union jobs. But ultimately, I reckon it's good. That's my take.
That's your take?
That's my take.
My take's quite simple. I teeter back and forth on this. I recognize we need green energy. We need to move away from hydrocarbons. But for the Republicans or for anybody really to say this is destroying union jobs, a pipeline is an automated process of moving oil.
Right.
Can you imagine the amount of Teamsters it's going to take to truck oil from Canada to the Gulf Coast? I mean, it's no different than the automation anywhere else in any other industry.
Right.
And I recognize there's a lot of trade unions in that area that they're saying are going to lose jobs. And I was talking to a brother last night about this exact same thing. He was a former IBW member, you know him well. And the fact is, anybody that's in trade unions know that you will never lose a job for more than a day. As soon as this job site closes down, you have the opportunity to get your name on a job board anywhere in the nation. And that's one of the wonderful things about working in union trades, especially electricians, the iron workers. If you want to go, if the job site shuts down here in Muscle Shoals, and in many cases they don't even shut the job site down, they choose to go to work in New Jersey, New York, and a lot of these northern states because the wage rates are so high comparatively speaking to ours. So those workers, those union tradesmen, women, are going to be on another job site within a week.
Yeah.
So hey, exactly. we got a caller that wants to.
No, I mean,
you want to get through your
there's a bunch of other things. So those were the bad things, right? The reason I don't want to, and I'm sorry, caller, I don't want to take you right now because I do want to get through the good things. And the last thing was kind of a mixed bag. I think it was good. A lot of people.
Well, he wanted to talk about Biden anyway, so he'll we'll give you a chance. More ammunition.
We'll try to give you a chance, but I do want to get through this stuff. So first, the first good thing I want to talk about is the NLRB. Okay, if you recall, we had an interview with Paul Prescott, a Philadelphia high school teacher, political coordinator for the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, and a contributing editor for Jacobin Magazine about Trump's anti-worker labor board. In that interview, we talked about how the U.S. Chamber of Commerce put out 10 anti-worker actions they'd like to see the NLRB take, and the fact that the NLRB has taken action on all 10 of those. They've restricted free speech rights for workers, which this administration supposedly, I hear, cares about free speech, but not when it comes to workers. They allowed for expedited union decertification campaigns where no such thing exists for union certification campaigns. We talked about that with Ryan just a second ago, and so much more, just completely disregarding principle and precedent in favor of corporate priorities.
All you need to know about the outgoing National Labor Relations Board lawyer was he fired all the PATCO airline workers. He busted the PATCO strike.
That's exactly
all you
right.
need to know.
I mean, the Biden administration has now fired the general counsel of the labor board, Peter Robb, and the second in command, the Trump-appointed lawyer Alice Stock. Both of these were management-side attorneys, and like he said, Peter Robb was even integral in the air traffic controllers firing them under Reagan. And it's worth asking yourself, right? If Trump is supposed to be pro-worker, why the hell would Trump appoint management-side attorneys to the labor board?
Yeah, well,
does he think that corporations and international oligopolies don't get a fair shake in this country? Does he think that workers have it too easy? Because that's the only explanation for appointing management-side attorneys to the labor board. It's absurd. Yeah. And so,
let's talk about Biden, because I've said it before. I said it this past week. I'm done with Trump. I don't want to hear anybody talking about Trump no more. He's gone. Let's move on.
Well, I mean, it's important because it's relevant. Because Peter Robb was relevant, in up until 2 days ago, and so that's talking about the transition is it's important and relevant.
I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of him because because here's the thing: the liberal media and believe it or not, there's a lot of people out there listening to us on the conservative radio that think that we listen to liberal media constantly. Right. The liberal media is going to continue pimping Trump every move for the next 2 years because it's good clickbait.
Well,
and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, well, I don't.
But I agree with what you say. I digress.
Yeah. So, just think about that. Well, I do want to illustrate this one more point as we go through these. All of these things were stuff that Biden did on day one and that Trump could have done every single day and chose not to. Okay? That's something to keep in your mind. Trump, every day he was in office, chose not to do these things. Okay? So the Department of Education, at the request of Biden, suspended all federal student loan payments and interest payments through September. This is something that Trump did, but that Biden extended. That's very important. The Biden administration bolstered DACA, which is something that has 90% support among the public because, of course, Trump tried to overturn it. Let's remember, for absolutely no reason, and the court stopped it because it was sloppy. But there was a challenge. There was a still ongoing challenge in Texas, and this puts a stop to that. Biden put a 100-day moratorium on deportation so that his administration can assess priorities and actually spend the limited time and resources on things that matter. And another one of his orders allowed for the prioritization of violent undocumented immigrants in the deportation process, which is something that was not allowed under the Trump administration. He issued an order that stopped ICE and immigration officials from putting violent, rapacious thugs at the front of the deportation line because he didn't care about making our community safer. He cared about looking tough on immigrants.
Yeah.
Another executive order that he issued banned discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation, or more accurately, used the order to clarify the executive branch's position on the Civil Rights Act, which you shouldn't be able to fire a person because they're trans or gay. Okay, this is just fundamental stuff.
Insanity.
There's 3 or 4 more things I'm going to hit really quick, let folks know about, and then we'll bring the caller on and see what they've got to say. So stay tuned. This is the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. Mike, if you want to call us back, 1-866-494-9866 is the number. Going to get through these things really quick, and then we'll try to get you on the line if you've got something you want to say. But so another executive order that Biden issued directed OSHA to review and update its policies and enforcement procedures regarding the pandemic, which is long overdue. You'll recall that we talked a few months ago about the lackluster performance of OSHA. There were tens of thousands of reported violations, and only hundreds of them were investigated, and ultimately, when we talked about it, only 12 fines were issued, which is insane. So this, with this new executive order, it signals a more proactive federal government determined to actually protect the health and safety of American workers, which is important. He issued an executive order mandating that all federal contractors have a $15 an hour minimum wage and that their employees get paid vacation. Fantastic. Why would we be giving government contracts to people that don't pay their workers enough?
It happens constantly.
That's
it
terrible.
Happens constantly.
So
wage theft runs rampant in government contracts.
So this is something that he's looking to address. He issued another executive order clarifying that workers have a right to refuse unsafe work and that this does not disqualify them from unemployment, which is a huge change from the last administration. Really, really excited to see this. This is going to give workers a lot more leverage when they're thinking about, okay, do I want to go back to work yet? Where am I going to go back to work? Am I going to go back to work in a place that respects me as a person, as a human, as a worker? Or do I have to take this job where the boss knows that if I leave, I will get evicted and I won't have health care? You know, it just gives people a lot more options, which is very important during this time. Biden also extended the eviction moratorium, which was set to expire. So that's
another
good.
Important thing.
Very important. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to highlight was that Biden put a new person at the head of the Equal Employment Opportunity commission, which is something that my union has to deal with a lot. And under the previous administration, the union had been disallowed from using official time to represent people in equal opportunity or equal employment opportunity cases, which is absurd. You know, if you think about it, that union representatives, union stewards are the people that they know the workers better than anybody else. And so who better than the union representatives and union stewards to represent people in equal opportunity cases?
Well, you're kind of making your case for why they wanted to do
right.
it.
And so that
Amazing.
Yeah. So
they don't want worker representation.
Yeah, so there's going to be a reversal of the previous administration's stance there, and you know, I mean, that's like, this is all huge, and I mean, this is all like really big stuff that is good for workers taking place in just the first few days. And especially him firing the general counsel of the labor board, that hasn't happened ever. There has never been a president fire the general counsel of the labor board. They've always waited until their term expired to replace them. And so Biden taking that proactive step to protect workers from a management side attorney heading up the labor board, I mean, this is really, really good news for workers across the country.
It's... you know, I'm under no disillusion that the administration is going to be great for workers, and I've said that for months now. But he's not doing a bad job. So I don't know if somebody got in the Democratic Party's ear and said, workers are taking a beating, and if we're going to continue to get elected, we're going to have to do something. I don't know what happened, but for certain, 40 years of anti-worker government on both sides has finally changed, and I hope it continues. But also, it's important to point out that it will not continue so long as everybody, not so much the labor movement, because the labor movement, rank and file labor movement, have always been a little bit more pressing. But so long as we have a liberal elite that kind of thinks that, we've got one of our own in office, so now we can go back to brunch, and brunch is still canceled for all of y'all that want to know. And that's the reason we had Ryan on today, because it doesn't end today. It didn't end 2 days ago.
Right.
This fight continues forever.
Absolutely.
It never ends.
Yeah, getting Biden in the White House and getting Warnock and Ossoff in the Senate, that is the start of the fight in my mind. But because, I mean, you know, before we were just fighting not to die, basically, and now
we were on defense. Now it's time to play offense.
Now it's time to play offense. We've got to fight just as hard as we were before. And you know, like with those the first things that I opened with, you know, even in this good week, there were several things that I that I didn't like, and we're not going to be, when we do talk about politics, you know, I mean, I think this is the first time that we've actually spent this much time on politicians in a hot minute. But when we do talk about it, we're not going to be shy to criticize, and that's important. You know, I think I've seen some of the stuff on CNN has just been really silly. Like there was this one guy talking about how the lights around the mall represent Joe Biden's arms around America. It's like, give me a break.
Well, I think it's important to point out that both, because we listen to this station as well, and a lot of the hosts that come on here, we're not, just let's make this perfectly clear. We're not the ones pimping the parties.
Yeah.
If you want to hear the party pimping playing, then stick with
MSNBC.
go to MSNBC or turn into one of the other co-hosts or one of the other hosts on this radio store.
Right.
We're not going to be talking about how great it is. What we're going to be talking about is what legislation needs to be passed moving forward.
Right. And
Simple as that.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about what they did, what they can do, and what they ought to do, and what we can do to push them when we talk about it. And when we're not talking about it, which is going to be most of the time, we're going to be talking about what you can do right now to make your life and the life of your sisters and brothers on the job and the life of your family and your community better, which is to organize your workplace, form a union, make your union stronger if you've got one, and that is the very important thing. But
grassroots. No change ever happens from the top.
Right.
No change ever happens from the top. It's going to have to be grown grassroots. It's going to have to. The NLRB and the NLRA wasn't formed out of the benevolence. We've talked about it before. Out of the benevolence of the federal government. It was formed because the workers were demanding better. Right. They were demanding more. They were on strikes. You had the Haymarket Massacre, where workers were murdered. You had Manitowoc, West Virginia, where workers were murdered by the federal government, by the U.S. military. Mm-hmm. All of the workers' rights was formed out of the struggle for the worker just to have a seat at the table, not to steal the plate,
right?
Just to have a seat at the table,
right? Yeah, and that's why getting the PRO Act passed is so important, because it'll help reconstitute our seat at the table, because over time, like Ryan was saying, our seat at the table has been chipped away at. It's been cut at little by little, a death by 1,000 cuts. And now it's like we've got a kid chair at the table, and
we don't even have a kid chair. We get the crumbs that scraped off.
Yeah, I mean, and it's about time that bosses start taking us seriously. It's about time that corporations start taking us seriously, and it's about time that politicians start taking workers seriously. And so we hope that the Biden administration will do that, and we will be at the forefront of the effort to challenge him when we doesn't. And with that, folks, we will sign off, and we will see you next week. So thanks for tuning in, folks. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we are up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. And if you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week, so if you see something that looks interesting to you, but you don't want to listen to the whole show, you can just find it there. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps, so to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. You can go to our website to find out more about us, thevalleylaborreport.org. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, you can send us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/thevalleylaborreport. Listener support goes a long way, and we really appreciate those of you who are supporting us currently on Patreon.